Welcome to the Behind the Girl Boss podcast, where every woman's journey takes center stage. Join us in this safe space as we explore the ins and outs of business, career, mental health, the music industry, and more. Whether you're a go-getter or a dream chaser, we've got stories for you. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok for an exclusive backstage pass. Get ready to be inspired, empowered, and entertained. Welcome to the ride. Hey everyone, what is up and welcome back to the podcast. Hello, I hope you guys are excited for today's episode. I know I am. I feel like I haven't done this in a while, but we're here. I'm just gonna get straight into the affirmation today because I think this will help with like the update that I have. So today's affirmation is stop feeling guilty for taking a break. Now, let's just jump into it. I'm going to take a little break from the podcast, and I feel like I haven't done this in so long, and it's not even like a long break. It's literally going to be like I won't be posting for 3 weeks. I feel like I just had so much travel and so much going on, and I just need a pause. I need a pause on interviews, I need a pause on uploading, and I just need to take a step back and kind of just refine my love for the podcast and find some new guests and just get back into the groove of everything. So today's episode is going to be the last one until July 23rd. So there's going to be a month of no episodes. But you can catch up on all the old ones that you haven't listened to yet, because I'm sure you have not listened to every single episode that has popped up on this podcast yet. So I just want to reiterate the affirmation. Stop feeling guilty for taking a break. At first, when I was like thinking about this, I was like, oh my God, like I should just suck it up and like continue posting. Like, why do I need a break? Blah, blah, blah. But I was like, no, you know what? Like breaks are needed and they're okay. And it's nothing bad. Like I'm literally going to take a break for 3 weeks and then come back, and it's going to be better than ever. I'm going to come back so refreshed, motivated, and everything. So it'll be a great thing. It's much needed, and I feel like it'll just do me wonders. But anyways, I'm really excited for you guys to listen to this episode today. On the podcast, we have Gina. Gina is a career coach and spiritual guide who specializes in helping women step into their aligned and purposeful career paths. We had such an insightful conversation. We spoke all about what steps to take if you're feeling lost. We spoke about what it's like to feel stuck. We spoke about exercises we can do to recognize our genius, what even is our genius. And it was just such an interesting conversation, and I felt so empowered after it. And I hope you guys feel that way as well after you listen to it. So yeah, without further ado, let's jump right into today's episode. Hey everyone, what's up and welcome back to the podcast. So today we have another guest with us and we have Gina. Hi, Gina.
Hello, thank you for having me today.
Thanks so much for coming on. Do you want to start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do?
Sure. So, everything I do, I begin with intentions. I'll share my intentions for being on today's show, which I think will give a glimpse into who I am. So, my intentions today, one, it's like understanding the context of the show behind the girl boss. So people are going to want to know what can I tell them about the coaching industry, how to become a coach, how to get into that particular field. I've been in it for 12 years. You know, some people find it really hard to break into, and so I definitely have some insight in that realm and want to share that with your audience. For anybody, regardless of the areas of work you might do as a woman, I am a teacher and a guide around bringing your feminine energy into the workplace. And so that's another intention I hold today, is just really holding space for the audience to understand how we might be facing burnout as women or lack of purpose, connection, and how retuning to our feminine energy is the solution a lot of us are looking for, but we may not know that's what we're looking for. And then the heart of everything I do is I'm really intending that anybody listening today can just really love on themselves and feel full self-acceptance for who they are. So a big piece of my work is I do career transformation coaching. As I'm sure we'll talk about, I've had a few different chapters in my career, and a lot of people today are asking, like, am I on the right path? Is this what I'm meant to do? And the answer to that I have found is to look within your own heart, find your own inner genius instead of looking outside of yourself and what the world seems to need or is asking for. Because whatever's inside of you as an innate talent, as a burning passion, that is what the world needs. And so I hope that those today are going to get a little more insight as to what their genius is, or maybe validating something that they wanted to maybe pursue but were afraid. So those are my intentions today.
No, I love that. I'm excited to dive into all that with you. Before we do that, I like to do a little hot seat segment to kind of just break the ice and a little fun facts. So the first one is if you could pick up and move anywhere right now, where would it be?
hmm So I currently live in Chicago. I've always lived in Chicago and I don't want to leave. I really went through a soul searching in recent years of like, would I want to pick up and leave? I'm a bit of an odd duck in Chicago because I'm so deeply spiritual,
Mm.
and it's a really like hustle culture, professional city. So, what I will say though is while I don't want to leave Chicago, I do have a dream of a secondary residence right outside of Chicago in either like Michigan or Indiana. I'd love to live on a communal farm.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
I've been starting to experiment and explore having that as a secondary home to like have the city life and also the country life.
Yeah, no, I love that. The next one is, do you have a life mantra or motto that you live by?
I do. I truly believe that we have all the answers for our life path inside of us when we get quiet and we listen. And it's not like listen to yourself from a space of ego and selfishness. It's listen to yourself from like, we do have a divine design, and there is a path that maybe we don't see exactly how it's going to map out or when things are going to happen, but our heart always will give us the guidance when we get quiet and listen from there. So every move I've made that may look courageous or may look like, wow, how did she do that? It was always because I listened to my heart.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I feel like everyone should kind of listen to themselves more. I feel like sometimes we always get in our own heads or like we think about something and we're like, oh, like, should I actually do that? But at the end of the day, like, I think we know ourselves best and what we deserve
Yes.
best.
Yes. I really want to keep bringing that message home in our time together today because that's so
Yes.
true.
And then the last one is who is a celebrity or creator or honestly anyone that keeps you inspired?
Yeah, so this is an easy one for me. Marianne Williamson, who is an OG spiritual teacher, has been in the game for about 40 years, and she has taught from the book of Course in Miracles, which is all about shifting from a fear-based consciousness, which we live in, to a consciousness of love. And she ran for president, and I got the opportunity to work on her campaign with her, be
Oh,
alongside her for some events in Chicago. And she is just this amazing inspiration for we can create the world we want to live in. And so it's like she has been the spiritual teacher telling us that for years, but she's also been in the background in politics
hmm.
herself in the arena more visibly, obviously as a presidential candidate. And while doing that, she just really started to awaken in all of us that we have the power inside of us to change the world with our own gifts, with our own ideas. And so I'm just so inspired by that because it's very easy in today's times, cultures, the media to think we can't and we're
Yeah.
stuck and things are bad. But she's a great creator in the realm of both spirituality and politics for uplifting my spirit.
Yeah, I love that. I don't actually know who she is, so I'll definitely check her out after. As someone who does share like their life online and has like a social media presence, I always like to ask people what's something that you do for fun for yourself that many people may not know that you actually do.
Yeah. But I love water. Can't really bring a camera in water, so if people
Yeah.
don't see me doing that activity, I go to a fitness center. It's actually a medical fitness facility. It's all about like health and well-being. It's not like a typical gym. And they have multiple pools. They have warm pools, they have hot tubs, they have fitness classes in the pools. So that is something I really prioritize as a health practice, but it's very renewing to like go be in water to release whatever gunk, stress, overwhelming thoughts are there. I feel
Mhm.
really refreshed when I go in the water.
Yeah, I love that. And growing up, did you always kind of picture yourself in this whole coaching and spirituality space, or did you have a different path in mind?
Well, that's a fun question because this wouldn't have been a space that there was a career path when I was growing
Yeah.
up. But what I can say is I was doing all the activities that indicated my natural talent in this direction,
Hmm.
which when I'm coaching people to tap into what is their genius, what are your natural gifts, childhood is the great place to go and look. So in childhood, I was literally doing things like coaching. My mom had a collection of like personal empowerment and spirituality books. I used to love reading them with her. I used to sit with her if she was like working out a problem, and I'd like, ask her questions out of the book. It was just so natural to me to
Hmm.
coach and to help anyone overcome an obstacle. I also was very spiritual growing up. I used to do like spiritual rituals with my family. I'd like turn the lights down low and light candles, and we'd pray and do all these things.
Hmm.
I also loved teaching. I had a community of stuffed animals, and I would like just line them all up and I would teach them the lessons. The things I love doing now as an adult and are a big part of my career, definitely I could trace back to childhood. I'm 48 years old. It's funny, I can look back on these childhood books that had what are your career ideas and what do you want to do? And like
Yeah.
you could fill in and post your photos. And literally in my generation, it was like, what were the options for the girl version of the book? It was like secretary, nurse, mother. It was like these are very traditional, only women based
Yeah.
industries. It wasn't like I was looking for this path, I was embodying this path.
Yeah. We go back a little bit. You did have a career in the traditional like legal space. What kind
Yes.
of made you want to change career paths and focus on your spirituality and coaching business?
I did have certain life events and happenings put me on a more traditional path of going to college,
Yeah.
law school. I became an attorney, practiced for several years. I had a lot of years of experience in that industry, did things I'm proud of and felt good about, achieved a lot, but I achieved a high degree of success very early in life. So I was like late 20s on top of the world and I didn't feel fulfilled. And so I just felt like the life I was living was not, while it looked great on the outside, it wasn't the life meant for me.
Mhm.
So I began a self exploration journey of who I am, which took a couple of years. And before getting into the coaching industry, there was a whole interim career. So I've had three major careers. First, as an attorney. Second, I was hired in Chicago, my home city, as the managing director of a women's nonprofit called Step Up Women's Network. It was a startup opportunity. They were cultivating a new community in Chicago, and it was all about empowering women and girls, which I did discover was a passion area for me,
Mhm.
still is today. It was right on the button. That was the first big career transition I made of empowering women and cultivating community. I took that organization through its startup phase for 6 years before I got into coaching.
Awesome. And right now, what kind of services do you offer? Is it only like one-on-one coaching? Is there group
Mm.
coaching?
I've been coaching officially for 12 years. I mean, again, I was coaching since I was 11,
Yeah.
but I've been coaching as a business for 12 years. And so one-on-one coaching has been the heart of my work. I've done a lot of events and some group events, speaking, consulting at companies. But to be more specific of what I do, so, the heart of my work is about finding one's inner genius and then shaping your career around that. So, right now, if someone is working with me one on one, the assessment I do is what level of your genius zone are you at? Like, what level of awareness do you have in your career? So, some people come to me and they're like, I have this, like me as a lawyer, I'm in this career path, but it's not for me. And I don't know what else I
Mhm.
would want to do. So I work with clients in that situation, and I call that the career passion seeker. And that's someone I help to unlock. What is my genius? What is my path? What do I really want to do
Yeah.
when I don't know? That second level I find people come in at is someone who's actually identified a new path they want to go down in their career. They're ready to make a change, but it seems scary, overwhelming. They're not sure if they could make money at it. I actually work with a lot of people who want to start a coaching business. That's a common one, or some kind of consulting coaching business of some sort.
Mhm.
And they're like, I have this idea, I have this talent, but I don't know, is anybody gonna really pay me for it? How do I get it off the ground? So I call that the new chapter opener. And I coach a lot of people to really dig in, understand their genius, and then what are the practical and mystical steps to getting a business off the ground. The third level is what I call the feminine genius thought leader. So this is someone who really knows their focus area, has been in it for many years, but wants to come forward as a thought leader. Maybe it's someone who wants to start a podcast or write a book or just, really start putting their ideas in the world, writing articles. So I help in a very feminine way versus the masculine,
Yeah.
which is how a lot of thought leaders are exuding their energy in the world. I help bring thought leadership out in a feminine way.
Hmm.
Okay, and then I have one more
Yeah.
level. So once someone's like, okay, got all that handled, I know who I am, I'm leading the way I want to, I'm in the work I want to be doing. The fourth level is someone who may now be wanting to cultivate what I call a genius dream team. So you need a group of people around you that, you've got your focus, but to bring your vision to life, you need other people with different talents than you. And so I can do work with a company or small like executive team to help align people inside the business or new hires into that right genius-based position. So everybody's humming and working in harmony.
Hmm. And when you first started off your coaching business officially like 12 years ago, how did you go about promoting it and getting your name out there? Because social media
Mhm.
obviously existed 12 years ago, but I feel like it wasn't as prominent as it is now for like business
Sure.
owners. So how did you go about that route?
Back then, email lists were a big starting point, and Facebook was the
Mhm.
social media platform that was just kind of becoming really popular in terms of people using for a business. But even before I talk about that, I would say that I had a path before I became a coach that was very foundational to setting me up
Mhm.
to engage in clients. And I think this is maybe a missing for some people where you're just like, oh, I'm a coach, I'm going to hang out a shingle. I don't know anybody though.
Yeah.
You know, well, okay, how are you going to get clients? That can be really tricky. So I had an interim role before I went out and started my own business that I was hired by somebody else to really cultivate community and bring people together. And literally, hundreds of women had invited and gotten to know and engaged in this nonprofit that I ran. When I transitioned out of that organization, and I gave them a lot of notice and I helped them hire the replacement for me. I was this slow leaving of an organization with literally hundreds of women saying, Gina, where are you going next? What are you doing next? And a lot of them were really inspired by the coaching practice I was developing. And so my
Mhm.
first clients came out of women in my existing network that I
Okay.
let them know about what I'd be doing. So I had a network of professional women. People had already been asking me, how did you make this amazing career transition? How did you do this? A big part of starting my coaching practice was I wasn't beginning from scratch. I was actually creating a coaching business based on something I was already known
Yeah.
for and people were already leaning into me for, which for coaches, one of the pieces of guidance I offer, and not that I am the end all be all, there's other ways to start a coaching business, but the way that I really suggest, particularly for women, is create a coaching business that's specific to your genius. And that usually means it's a way of life you embody or it's a transformation you've gone through so you can take others through. So people really trust me to help them in a career transformation because I've done it myself. I
Yeah.
didn't go study it in school and learn it in a textbook. I actually lived it and I've
Yeah.
embodied it. And so that to me is the highest credential you can have as a coach is like, hey, I can help you do this because I've done it
Yeah.
myself. And so that's really what I opened the doors with. And then of course, yes, I created an email list based on the contacts I had already had. I already had a great list of contacts. Started a blog at the time, blogging was more popular,
Yeah.
would make some Facebook posts, just started showing up and letting people know this is who I am and what I do.
Yeah. No, I love that. And talking about community, Why do you personally think that connecting with community is essential for just overall well-being?
Mhm.
And if someone's listening to this now and feels like they don't have a community or don't fit into community, what advice would you give to them?
Yeah. Well, I'll talk about it in a couple of contexts. So one is like if you are starting a business, which we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Like being a business owner. And then the other would be like the general well-being, which you just is how you couch the question. I would say, for anybody who's a business owner, has an innovative idea, wants to do something different, you always want to be around other people that are like that, other entrepreneurs, other people who are creative, are not maybe in a corporate structure that is a very different lifestyle. So having that like-minded community who wants to operate maybe on the fringe outside of the box as an entrepreneur is really valuable. Same for, we're going to talk also later in this podcast about like really balancing in feminine energy. So
Mhm.
also that becomes important if you're a woman who's really starting to lead with your feminine energy. You want to be around some other women that are doing the same and learning the same, because it's going to feel a little harsh if you're just around
Yeah.
women who are also in their masculine. So you need some like-minded people to help you feel that you're safe to be
Mhm.
yourself. And
Yeah.
that's probably what the answer to the bigger question is for your own well-being, is to find communities that you fit, that you can be you, because we're in such a divisive world right now that if you can find spaces and places where people aren't advising you, telling what you should do with your life, criticizing you, or even others in the mix, or worrying about what's wrong with the world. If you find places where people are interested in actually you and who you are authentically, and they want to see you thrive and shine as yourself, that's the success formula for being in this world at this time where there is so much fear and sort of like authority thinking, where people are telling each other what to do, and we're not being able to listen to
Yeah.
ourselves. I think community is the answer to that.
100%. And going off feminine energy that you were talking about, what does divine feminine power mean to you? And if anyone's
Mm.
listening and they don't actually know what feminine energy
Sure.
really means, what does that mean?
We are designed with creative power as humans. We have the ability, to have an idea and bring it into fruition, to, as women get pregnant and have a baby, like there's all these things, we can do to create. We can write a book, we can create a business, we
Yeah.
can, write a letter. We have this creative power. There's what's known in the East as the yin and the yang, and this is what the feminine and masculine energies are. I'm not being specific about gender here, although they can really relate to some ways we've looked at gender.
Mhm.
This may all be changing, but if we look at it as yin yang, masculine, so the yin is the feminine, the yang is the masculine. The divine feminine is this idea that inside our feminine energy, there is this sacred birthing ability that we have, and it exists in our young years as a maiden, it exists in our mothering years, and then it exists as we're wise women as we get older. And this was revered before a lot of the traditional religions had created a lot of suppression of women in how the thought systems have come forward. So it really used to be that women were revered and the feminine was honored deeply. And so the divine feminine is a remembrance of that. And there's different thought systems or teachers or guides that have developed different ways, but it, may involve goddesses that hold energies that we can bring forward. That's a system
Mhm.
that I work with. And it's a counterbalance to our masculine energy. So the feminine side is the receptive side, and the masculine side is the giving side. A couple other ways of saying it's like the feminine is in surrender and the masculine is in action.
Mhm.
Like the feminine in us would be more in silence and listening and surrender. And you might say, if you're spiritual this way, like in tune with God or the divine or the universe and what wants to come through you, it's more of a surrendered way of living. And so you operate more in intuition, like, ooh, this idea got planted within
Yeah.
me. You operate more in fluidity and flow and co-creation. On the masculine side, it's more about giving. And this is what we see in so much of the professional culture because our workplaces, our industries have been shaped by men and their masculine energy and their very different hormonal structure and how they work efficiently. So on the masculine side, this is the hustle culture. It's goals, linear plans, coming from the head and the intellect. It's about action and taking steps and being
Mhm.
proactive. And it's, again, one isn't better than the other. A whole person brings both together.
Yeah.
It used to be when the world was much more gender based that this is why, there was a marriage of a man brought that masculine and the woman brought that feminine. So together they were whole.
Yeah.
Well, this is really shifting to inner wholeness. It's a spiritual evolution, is the way I look at it, or a growth of humanity. But we're really finding that inner balance of masculine and feminine. That's why it's really becoming valuable to know the distinctions and find your inner balance.
Yeah, for sure. And how would you say for like entrepreneurs how they can embrace their own vulnerability and intuition to like make
Mm,
decisions within their own business?
yeah, yeah. So what I said probably sounded really esoteric and like, how does that apply to business? It can get practical. I would say one of the biggest ways is if we're just to look big picture, because there's also a lot of practical stuff I can say, but big picture, a feminine way to move forward in business is to listen within oneself, be guided by the heart and the intuition for how to move and to listen because sometimes it's not clear and you don't move until you're clear and you allow that to come forward. The masculine can be much more heady and like, I have an idea. Okay, ready? Let's go. Let's create a plan. Let's move it forward,
Yeah.
right? And what can happen is that if you move forward just really from your head and your masculine energy without first checking in with the feminine side, you may go down a path that is more based on intellect and ego
Yeah.
than what you're really designed for. Like you can achieve it. Like I could achieve all the things in my legal career, but it wasn't ultimately what I'm most designed for.
Yeah.
So to keep going down that path would have been based on like my ego, my intellect, my wanting for praise or money. When I'm listening to my feminine, I'm more guided by something bigger than me that has way more wisdom than I do as the human in this body
Yeah.
can really guide towards something bigger than I've ever imagined.
Hmm. And how do you personally think embracing like that feminine energy can help with things like burnout or just balancing
Yes.
everything you
Okay.
have in life?
hmm So I'll start with this. This is a bit more about like our hormonal makeup or how we're wired even in our brains.
Hmm.
Women have diffuse energy focus, so that's how our brains are wired, and then we operate hormonally in cycles. Men in their brain have a singular focus and they operate on a 24-hour cycle. So you could look at the business world and you could see like a 9 to 5, every day the same schedule. Guess
Hmm.
who that serves? Men.
Then, yeah.
Doesn't serve women. Women are not feeling the same every day. This morning, I had very severe menstrual cramps. And so I spent several hours in bed taking care of myself.
Yeah.
And I allowed myself to do that. Regardless of what tampon commercials will say, you should just get up and be in the
Yeah.
world. And no,
Sometimes you
my
just don't want
body,
to.
right, my body needed rest today. That's how my cycle works. And that doesn't, by any stretch of the imagination, mean that a man is going to produce more than me. It doesn't mean that. It just means in our cycles we work differently. So a lot of women are burning out because they're trying to follow the 9 to 5 or whatever the hours are, but 5 days a week. If somebody works 5 days a week, I mean, particularly if you're a woman, by Thursday you're tired and you're like on fumes. When we're in that burnout as women, it's because we're following what works really well for men,
Yeah.
But as women, if we can honor our cycles and where we are, when our energy's up, we can accomplish a lot more. And so if we use that time that we feel amazing and let ourselves rest, there is a sense of balance, like thinking about like nature lives in balance and things, they rise and fall. That's how we are. We're much more like that. And so we can eliminate burnout if we allow ourselves a lot more rest and play in between our work cycle.
Yeah. No, I think that's important, especially for me too. Like whenever I'm like getting my period, I'm in like the worst mood ever and I don't want to be doing anything. And when I like allow myself to like
Hmm.
take the time and like recharge, I feel like I come back with so much more like motivation versus if I tried to like work
Yes.
through it, I would just be dreading it the entire time.
Yes. And if we really pay attention, so one of the things that is said about women on our menstrual cycle is that it's a very deeply intuitive time. That laying around, you can be like tuning into wisdom. It's not like
Mhm.
you're doing absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
You could be just kind of like listening. I was this morning, I was laying in bed and I had, some preset questions that you had sent over for the show, and I was just kind of like being with them. It wasn't like hustling, trying to figure them out. I was laying in my bed and just kind of tuning into some of the questions and what were my intentions I wanted to bring. And so it's just all very feminine the way that I prepared to be here
Yeah.
today.
No, I love
Mhm.
that. Can you also share any strategies or exercises for listeners to kind of like explore their unique genius, like you were talking about,
Mm.
especially if they're like feeling stuck or like unsure of like the place they are in?
Yeah. Yeah. So if somebody's in the beginning and like, I don't know where I'm at, it can feel overwhelming and scary because I was in this position of like, you're looking at other people and you're like, they
Yeah.
look like they've got it figured out. And I don't know. One thing, again, I want to go back to this idea of like, it's about listening to
Yeah.
yourself, going externally to other people and saying, what do you think I should do? And there's exceptional people that really know you
Hmm.
and may be able to reflect back what just because what they know
Yeah.
about you. But most people are going to give you advice based on their own thoughts and ideas. So if you're someone who's at the very beginning, it's really an inward journey, whether you do that on your own or with some coaching support. I definitely have some, I would recommend look at my website, GinaMarotta.com, and my blog. I think the biggest clue for anybody at the very beginning is going to sound a little surprising. So I'll share it and see how this resonates with even you. What is your genius is actually fun and easy for you. That's the feeling state.
Hmm.
When you're in your genius zone, it's total flow. It's not hard. You're not really efforting. You're just being you. So if we go back to like we were talking about with me, like I started coaching when I was 11 years old. I could remember this sitting with my mom and right. So to this day to sit with a client and coach them and listen, it's very easy for me.
Hmm.
But that's unique to me. So
Yeah.
it's looking for, if you're at the beginning, it's looking for what feels fun and easy. And this is a real mind bender for anybody who has a real traditional education, which I had. And you think work is going to be hard.
Yeah.
And you're looking at, all the training and credentials, and we're kind of brainwashed that that's the only way to have a successful career is with all these external credentials. But I will tell you, I truly believe the best credential you can have, and I've seen this, is your natural born talent. There's nothing better. Doesn't mean you can't hone your skills and improve on
Yeah.
them, but it's like wow, you're born with that. You just have this gift. That's the thing to look for. So it could be looking to your childhood, it could be looking to your lineage and other family members and their natural talents. And then another just really fun clue I'll throw in here around your genius is it sometimes can really be reflected to you in where you're frustrated with other people. And I'll explain why. Because people are talking to you about something and you're just sitting there in your head or out loud thinking, why don't you? know what to do. I don't understand why you don't know how to solve this. Like, so if somebody were to,
Hmm.
say to me, and I, back in the day before I was a coach, like, Gina, oh, my career, I don't feel happy and I don't know what I want to do. I would have been like, well, here's the 3 things you do. Just go do that.
Yeah.
Well, but that's a genius zone. That's like I've perfected something inside of me. I know how to do it that most people don't know how to do. So it's easy to get frustrated with people before you recognize your genius inside your
Yeah.
genius zone because you're like, are you an idiot? Why don't you know what to do? You think everybody can do the thing you can do, but that's not true. And that's what you're looking for. It's fun and
Yeah.
easy for you, and it's not for everybody else.
Yeah, 100%. And I think when you were talking, I thought of like comparison. I feel like a lot of us just naturally do that and like look at other people's
Yes.
lives and be like, how are they doing like X, Y, and Z? Or like, I should be in that place. And I do that to myself a lot. And I
Yes.
think that's something that like everyone has to try and refrain from doing. So if someone comes to you and they talk a lot about like comparing themselves to other people, what
Yes.
advice would you give them?
Yes. Well, there's a metaphor that I've heard that I would start with. The peony and the rose are each beautiful flowers, but you can't expect one to be the other. They just have their own uniqueness that makes them beautiful in what they are. It's really about going inside and recognizing what your unique gifts are,
Mhm.
and letting go of what you're seeing in others. There's probably two types of comparison that come up. And one is where it's comparison like, I should be that successful. I should be
Yeah.
doing what they're doing. I should have that. When we're in that state of comparison, it's often like you're comparing apples and oranges, like I was saying, like you're just meant to do something different than them. So
Yeah.
just forget, let them go. They're not for you to even worry about. But the other camp, sometimes we compare ourselves to people that we actually admire what they're doing. And when that's the case, there's some information there. If it's more like of a feeling of like envy or admiration, you want what they want, that actually might be a clue that your genius zone is in that area. I talked about Marianne Williamson as a creator that I
Hmm.
admire. And for, as many years as I've had my business, she's someone I have admired. And that's a
Yeah.
very positive thing. I don't find I compare myself in a negative way to her, but I look to her as like, wow, the things she's doing inspire me and I
Yeah.
want to go that direction. So that's like a healthy version of
Hmm.
like I admire someone in comparison. But when it's that comparison of, oh, I should be doing what they're doing, you have to get off their train and get back onto your own. You have a unique path that's yours. It's going to unfold in your right timing, and your path is beautiful. Just like the flowers. Your path is beautiful if you can just stay in your path.
Yeah, no, 100% I agree. Well, the last part of my podcast, I asked people on Instagram to ask you questions, and I picked two of my favorite ones. So the first one is, what's your favorite self-care activity?
First, if you don't mind, I'm going to reframe that to a new term I've been playing with instead of self-care because I think people don't give themselves permission to do
Hmm.
self-care. So I'm finding a better way to feel not only like I have to give myself permission, but it's necessary, is I'm calling it a nourishing input.
Yeah,
And I like the word input because when we're focused on our work, we're giving outputs. And we can't only put outputs in the world. We will burn out, going back to that
yeah,
idea. So, nourishing input, it's like, well, how do I restore myself so I can continue working and serving and doing what I love? A favorite nourishing input, well, I actually have several on deck for my spring season because just like I plan my work, I will plan my nourishing practices, my nourishing inputs. One is we're in the spring season and I love to sit in the sun. I feel like the
hmm,
sun gives me energy, and so there is a little coffee shop in my neighborhood, and if it's a beautiful morning, just to even sit out there for an hour, have a coffee, drink some water, journal, even take a phone call, but just getting some sun rays, I find is really, really
Yeah.
energizing for my body and my being. Another practice that's super important to me and very feminine is time with my women friends. So I have some that's always pre-scheduled. I have a very good friend that we've been practicing the divine feminine together for 12 years. On the new moon, we always get together and we get together for about 90 minutes on the phone. She doesn't live in my city anymore. And we just each hold space and share with each other what's happening. We're witnessing each
Hmm.
other's lives. I can be sobbing in tears because something crazy happened. I could be sharing like things I'm celebrating. I could be saying I'm really confused about something. I just always know I have that space on the
Yeah.
noon with her to be in sisterhood and share and not be told what to do, but to be supported and reflected and
Hmm.
held. And that's another really feminine practice. I can't live without that. I absolutely cannot. There are just my certain women that I can lean into, that we can be together that way. That is an absolute nourishing input. So I actually look at my schedule now and I make sure that I have at least 2 touch points during the week with women like that in my life.
Yeah. No, I love that. I actually do that with one of my best friends. So we have a podcast together too. And
Oh,
every week
great.
we talk. And I feel like before we actually record, we just like hold space for each other and like update each other on like everything in our lives.
Mm.
And I feel like that is very important to me and something that like I don't think I would ever personally give up either.
Yes, yes, it's so it fills you back up. There's so
Yeah.
many things you're probably doing that are, masculine and making decisions and, working through things and maybe doing a lot of it on your own. And here you
Hmm.
just get to feel held and supported and nourished, and it fills you back up to go
Yeah.
do the work. Yeah,
100%.
beautiful.
And then the last question is, how do you overcome the anxiety of putting yourself out there and posting on social media?
Mm. So for me, the anxiety around social media is not the putting myself out there. I've always been a natural, like in front of audiences, and
Hmm.
I actually feel like in the this year my content has gotten really good and I feel really good about it. The anxiety I have around social media is like, is it worth it? Is it
Hmm.
really the place to put my energy? And that's a question mark that I often have. There are people that focus on social media and they have the algorithms figured
Yeah.
out and right and they're really using it in a very focused way, and I'm someone who's not invested in like learning those things, but I've always had community on social
Yeah.
media and I share with them. So the anxiety is really about like, well, how much do I want to be here? I would say this year I'm making conscious effort to say less time online, more time in real life with people,
Yeah.
as not just a wellness thing, but a business practice. Like the truth is, I get more business of people who meet me in person,
Hmm.
connections I make that way than someone finding me on social media. I do, sure, I do get some business connections on social media. I won't say none at all, but there's just such a stronger connection in real life. Again, I would go back to I listen to my own self. That's how I deal with the anxiety.
Yeah.
That's the anxiety that's come up. I'm not sure if it's as worth it as the time I've put in. So I'm listening to myself and saying, there's a new strategy here that is going to reduce that anxiety.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Well, that's all I had for you today. So thank you so much again for coming on and sharing all of this with us. Before you leave, do you want to shout out any of your socials, where they can find you, where they can work with you?
Yes, absolutely. So the primary place I would go to my website, it's ginamarotta.com. I have a blog. I post some free ways to tap into your genius. And through there, you can access my second favorite channel, which is my Insight Timer teacher page. So Insight Timer is a meditation app. It's humongous. There's so many teachers. There's so many resources. It's organized by teachers. So if you just look
Hmm.
up me on the Insight Timer app, I have prayers and meditations that will support a lot of the different types of concepts we've talked about today. So, bringing spirituality into your work life to support and hold you and not have to feel all the hustle.
Yeah.
So, Insight Timer will be my second favorite. And then, of course, Instagram and LinkedIn. I do make posts around my work and where you can find things that are coming up.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. I'll link everything in the show notes.
Great, great. This has been such a delight, and I just want to leave with a blessing to your listeners that, those intentions we shared in the beginning, that, something in that realm really came true for them, and they can just take a moment, check their own hearts, and see what wisdom came through. I'm
Yes.
just really excited to have been with you.
Me too. Thank you so much for sharing your time and space and energy.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. I really do hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to go follow Gina on all her socials. Go show her some love, support. Go check her out. If you want to follow me, please don't be shy. You can follow me either at Behind the Girl Boss or at It's Manawan. You can check out my YouTube channel, It's Manawan. I post almost every week on there now. And yeah, don't forget that we're taking a little break. So the next episode will be on July 23rd. Don't miss me too much. You can go listen to all the other episodes that have been posted already. There's years of content there. And yeah, thank you guys again for listening. Don't forget to leave a review, rate, subscribe, whatever you want to do. And I will talk to you guys next time. Bye, guys.